Hi everybody again. First of all, I have to speak up. Okay, I'm going to speak up. So first of all, I want to tell you how thankful I am for this project. I've been really impressed by the introduction given by David, and I think it's going to be a really fruitful endeavor to put together academics and non-academics to discuss the different ways memory take and how they can be managed. So I know what I'm talking about because I've been doing this for quite a while at the German-Polish border with an institution first called Transkultura and then renamed into the Institute for Applied History. So we tried to develop a mode of how to apply history in a trans-border region that is not really disputed anymore because the border is quite settled or has been settled for quite a while, but there is still, something to deal with in terms of heritage, in terms of legacy, and there is a very, very tough border in terms of language. So Polish and German doesn't really come together if you don't really make an effort, because you just simply do not understand a word if you don't speak the language. So this is where I've started my journey with memory and memory works, and it just, while listening to you and to all the presentations, I had so many different recollections from the time of being active in this Borderland. I'm not anymore, so I kind of switched sides and turned to academia. So I'm working at a university right now and trying to look at what's going on from a more analytical perspective. That's why I'm also very thankful for what Anna just introduced to us. So this analytical view is very, very much needed. However, while reading and listening, I've been thinking about how to do this all, how to apply this kind of dialogue you've been talking about, because this seems to be key. It's very important to say that we need that, and it's very important to establish this kind of aim that it should be agonistic instead of antagonistic. But all the time I've been thinking about the practitioners, maybe having in mind my own situation and trying to understand how can we do that? Because if you are in a situation where you have antagonistic kind of versions of the past, as you have it on the Polish-German border, and you try to set up something like a dialogue between, let's say, citizens, you, as the person you're responsible for it, you have a lot of a burden to carry. Because, first of all, how you establish ways to meet, If one side of the border says, I don't care, I live here on this side of the border, what do I care about what the others do? So how do you raise awareness that there is something to talk about? So how do you establish space? How do you create this kind of space for people to get together and to meet on a basis that is meaningful and or that can provide a meaningful and a fruitful dialogue? So I would, instead of focusing on this analytical mode, I would wish for this project to go in the direction to focus on those people who carry the burden of actually being responsible for this dialogue. So I'm looking in the direction of the Pogranicze Fundacja and all the other practitioners, and I would really like to be kept up to date in what your findings are or what your state of discussion is, because this seems to be a very, very, very crucial point. So, because I think there is not a lot of places where you can learn how to do this. If you go to a university, if you study, you learn how to analyze, but how to provide a feedback loop between this academic kind of thinking about memory in the past and this kind of doing mode is not really part of academic curriculums. And if you are a practitioner, I've been looking for a place to learn how to facilitate dialogue in a very meaningful way, but I haven't come across any institutions that would teach you how to do that. So that's why I think this project is really, really important and very meaningful, and I would really like to stay up to date with your with your findings. So this is for the one part of the agonistic memory Anna has mentioned in her text. So it's about dialect, and the second part I figured when I read is about institutions that could be helpful to introduce agonistic memory. And as I heard, you've been talking about museums already a lot, but I wanted to share just one more impression from a museum case, because I recently visited with students a very newly established site of memory in Germany. It's in Erfurt. This is the capital of Thuringia. And the museum is called Topf und Söhne, Topf and Sons. And its subtitle is The Engineers of the Final Solutions, the Builders of the Auschwitz Ovens. So basically it is on the authentic side of a factory that built the Auschwitz ovens, as says the subtitle. And what we discovered there, what would, in my perspective, very much help to trigger agonistic memory in a museum setting, are performative elements. And one performative element I came across in this exhibit is a high desk, which is in the corner of the top floor of the exhibit, right next to a window. And when the visitor approaches this high desk, he encounters, or she encounters, the plans the engineers were working on. And there is not much of text or any kind of explanatory materials around it. You just approach the high desk, you look at the constructions the engineers made, and then you might or might not turn your view and look out of the window, because the high desk is right next to a window, and what you see is a nice landscape. And if you raise your head a bit, you see an arrow saying, it's a red arrow saying, you're looking in the direction of the Buchenwald concentration camp. So, and combining this view to concentration camp Buchenwald, looking back on the sketches of the ovens of the Auschwitz concentration camp, really had made an impression on me. And I think it's a very subtle way to introduce the perspective of perpetrators in such a museum setting, without raising the finger and saying you have to remember this and that, but in a very, as I said, subtle way. So I really liked this very specific example, and I wanted to share it with you, maybe giving some fruit for further thoughts. And the last point I wanted to raise when it comes to institutions is, maybe you've talked about it, maybe not, but textbooks are a very important thing which could be tackled in this realm. And I once came across Israeli-Palestinian textbook, which made a huge impression on me, because it had 3 columns, one column for the Israeli version of the conflict, second column for the Palestinian version of the conflict, and a huge white column in the middle for also kind of performative action to either merge the two versions, or to introduce the personal version for the person studying with this textbook, to introduce or to make space, or this textbook made space for a third version in between the two conflicted views of the past. And the last point to this, I think that, and we are using this technique here, that all the digital means we have by now, also digital textbooks, for instance, that enhance subjective views on the past, should be used in a much broader context. I think there is also a lot to be discovered still by academics and non-academics. Thank you so much.